I 34F strongly feel my husband, 37M, hasn't forgiven my past affair and no longer loves me. It has been around 15 years since I have been married to my husband, and we have 2 young boys together. The reasons for my divorce have absolutely nothing to do with my husband, and have absolutely nothing to do with how I feel about him. I cheated for selfish reasons, and I deeply regret it every single day of my life. After I became 30, I grew unsatisfied with my life, since I had spent my 20s either in a committed relationship or as a single mother of 2 young children. I was also troubled by the notion of being just another stay-at-home mom of my children. To avoid having a conversation about it with my husband, I went on a hunt for excitement outside of my marriage. There isn't much significance in the facts other than the fact that he was a local friend we'd known for a couple of years, that it lasted for about 7 months before becoming physical for the final 4 months, and that it lasted for about 7 months before becoming physical for the final 4 months of the relationship. In the end, my husband uncovered the truth when he got suspicious of my behavior, even though the affair had been finished for a couple of weeks at the time of his discovery. Many fights ensued over the next month or 2, including my apology, not sleeping in the same bed, threats of divorce, and statements that the relationship was finished, among other things. Our discussion resulted in the conclusion that it wasn't enough to separate us, that we would be able to overcome our difficulties, and that the experience will seem like a distant memory in few years. We discussed marriage counseling, but he rejected at every point, stating that I don't want anyone knowing my business, whether it was a stranger or a friend. We'd now been together for 2 years, and our relationship seems to be completely different from what it was before to my affair. We had to wait a time for our life to get back on track after the affair, but it's never been the same since. It's never seemed as passionate or love-filled as it used to be. I don't get the sensation that he's cold towards me. Rather, there's something missing. He's entirely halted all types of PDAs, which even our friends have noticed. Little moments like snuggling on the couch seem to happen very sporadically anymore, and it's never for too long before he moves away. I've been concerned about him since he had an endoscopy in January because he was feeling terrible stomach pains, which is troubling since his father died at the age of 30 from bowel cancer, and stomach cancer is a family trait. I didn't find out about any of this until many days later, and it has been nagging at me ever since. He was fortunate in that he acquired ulcers and is now receiving treatment for them. When he gets stomach pains, I know he is worried and panics. When he is in the hospital, I know he is terrified and panics, but he has decided to go through this on his own. He didn't even tell me he was having stomach problems in the week before opting to go to the doctor, which tells me he's lost something important inside of him. We haven't told anybody in our personal life about anything that's going on, so I don't have someone to seek advice from. I'm not sure what kind of assistance I'm searching for, so any suggestions or pointers would be really helpful. Thank you so much for your assistance. Story 2. Wife is pregnant, baby might not be mine. I'm not sure why I'm going through with this. I've been drinking heavily for the whole of today, so please bear with me if I lose my ability to reason. My wife is 38 years old and I am 40 years old. We have 2 children. She was confident that we would never be able to have a family. Even though I wished for them, the notion of becoming a father was more appealing to me. We met when I was 20 and she was 18, and we were married when I was 22. We have 2 children. She came from an affluent family, and her parents did not approve of my being in their home. They assumed she married someone from a different social status than she belonged to. She just returned from a visit with her parents, during which her father surprised her with a new car. Her parents had a lot of money, and I trusted her, so I didn't think twice about accepting their offer. In addition, she has received gifts from her father on a consistent basis over the years. What distinguishes this one from the others? Her announcement that she was having a child a few weeks ago made me giddy with excitement. I'm in the best shape of my life right now. However, it did not persist for long. I got a phone call from a friend who informed me that he had seen her with her brother-in-law, her sister's husband, when she was visiting her parents. She hadn't said anything about seeing him to me before. While their peculiar connection made me uncomfortable in the past, I consoled myself with the knowledge that she had chosen me. She had the option of choosing him, but she chose me. Things began to shift when a friend showed me some photographs. The images represented a couple who were very close to one another. In the photograph, they were seen holding hands and looking at one another. Intimate gestures between persons who are familiar with one another. Her staring at her house with a gaze that I assumed was meant for me was a surprise. He kissed her, his hands in her hair, while he did so. It turns out that he was the one who most likely bought her the vehicle. I approached her and inquired as to what had transpired, but she flatly refused to tell me what had happened. She said she hadn't seen him at the time. The implication was that I should know the score between them and that she should be respectful in her behavior. Extremely polite and considerate. I handed her the photographs and informed her that she needed to go. That occurred around 1 week ago. Then I did the math in my head and realized that all of the dates had been correctly calculated. There is a very good chance that he is the father of the child. When I asked her for a DNA test today, she burst into tears. She was intrigued by the prospect of putting her child to the test. But if I don't have one, I won't be able to identify this child as my own. This whole situation has prompted me to have serious doubts about my marriage. Not to mention how forthright she has been throughout the process. How many of the gifts she's received throughout the years have come from her father, do you think? Is she only extending her legs for each and every man who purchases something pleasant for her? What is the truth about my marriage to A? I shared the images to her sister, who was delighted. Not for the lofty reason that she believes she should be aware. I wish to do physical damage to my wife and brother-in-law, and this is the only method I know of doing it. On Monday, I want to visit with an attorney and begin the divorce process in earnest. Thank you for taking the time to read this, and please accept my apologies if the information is jumbled. As a result of my ill health and excessive drinking, I'm in a bad mood today. Thank you so much for your assistance. Those who do not believe me are allowed to express their disbelief. Given that this is the internet, I can understand your skepticism. It is necessary for me to get her consent for a DNA test, and she has said unambiguously that she will not grant such consent. The next step will be for me to go through a divorce and lose half of my possessions. Infidelity is seen as less significant in UK courts. A combination of dyslexia and a high blood alcohol level is responsible for any spelling and grammatical problems. Story 3. Found out husband of 5 has gotten erotic massages with PJ. Hello, after 7 years of marriage, I just discovered that my husband, who has been receiving sensuous massages with a BJ finish for the last 5 years, has been having an affair. After looking over our purchase history, I learned that he had placed an order for condoms from Walmart. He acknowledged to it right away, claiming he'd been there around 5 times in the preceding 2 years. No matter what I do or how I approach it, I'm at a loss on what to do. What should I inquire about in order to make myself feel better? Because we have so many commitments over the next several weeks, I truly wish that I didn't have to see anybody at that time. I made it clear that this was cheating and inappropriate, and he responded by apologizing and feeling terrible for himself. As well as probing questions, I've also asked some more meditative ones, such as, "How are you feeling?" and other similar ones. One issue is that he has said that it is nothing more than what it is, and that he feels horrible for having wounded me, but that he has difficulties feeling guilty when he is in the presence of others. On such days, he nearly seems to have completed a task on his to-do list. One of them occurred the day before our 5-year wedding anniversary, and I was completely consumed by it. Anyone who has been in this situation previously or who has advice on what to do next would be much appreciated.